Hello everyone and welcome to the Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. I'm Viddy of Video Games for Fun. Now, weekly podcast, yes, I apologize for missing last week's episode. I guess I just wasn't feeling in the right mood for it, I guess, which is understandable considering all the news that's going on in the world. But I'm feeling a little bit better now, and we can take a bit of a break from the news going on in the world to talk about free topics today. Speaking of news, these are sort of belated topics, you might say, which I am using to, well, give me time to think more about a specific video game music topic, which will hopefully be in the next episode after this one. But what are the free topics today? Well, last week I was hoping to talk about the Nintendo Direct, specifically the Nintendo Direct Mini. That's one of the topics. The other Direct, well, it's not a Direct, is the Xbox Games Showcase. A number of games to talk about there. And finally, the Sonic film sequel has a release date. And there's a bit more to talk about the Sonic film sequel. So I guess we'll just get started, shall we? Yep, let's start with the first topic, the Nintendo Direct Mini. Going into the Nintendo Direct Mini, obviously I wasn't expecting much. It was even said not to expect much, so don't expect, Breath of the Wild 2, Metroid Prime 4, anything like that. And suffice to say, what the Nintendo Direct Mini ended up being was interesting. So we had it in July? Oh yes, happy August by the way. Was DLC for Cadence of Hyrule, which is all well and good. I've only played a tiny bit of Cadence of Hyrule, and I feel like I need to play more of it to understand if I have a good sense of rhythm or tempo or not. But from what I have played of it, and from what other people have said about it, it's a great game, and any DLC for it is all well and good. There were two other games mentioned after Cadence of Hyrule, which I guess personally weren't all that interesting, which was Rogue Company, some kind of third-person shooter, and WWE 2K Battlegrounds, a wrestling game. Maybe people might be interested in that, or more so, people might be interested in the big reveals, and I'll especially talk about these reveals. Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, I think that's what it's called, the remaster of that, and the yet-to-be-released Shin Megami Tensei 5. Both of these Megami Tensei games are going to be coming out in 2021, next year. And they were definitely the big showcase for the Direct. Now, if you've been on my channel, you will have seen that I reviewed Persona 5, and that I have started getting into the Persona series, which I know is the spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, and a lot of people even say it's more popular, perhaps, than the games that actually started it. But these two games I'm honestly looking forward to. In a way, it gives me the opportunity to play the games that led to the Persona series that I've been getting into. I am kind of aware that these games are darker, perhaps, than the Persona games, if that is even possible. The third Shin Megami Tensei game I've heard is also difficult. There is a possibility that the remaster might have multiple difficulty levels, or at least have a more fair difficulty level. I'm up for a challenge, definitely. But if the third game was or is too difficult, hopefully the remaster might rectify that in a way. Shin Megami Tensei 5, as far as I'm aware, is, well, I guess people might have been asking over the years, where's Shin Megami Tensei 5? When's the next Shin Megami Tensei? Maybe others might have been a little bit disappointed that the Persona games, with not just 5, but maybe even 3 or 4, are taking over, I guess, the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. But regardless, I am looking forward to these two games very, very much. And they're on the Switch as well as, the PlayStation 4. Of course, will we get to see Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal on the Switch, minus, I guess, a spin-off or two? It's not looking likely, is it? It would be great to have Persona 5 in some form on the Switch. I would especially like to play it on the go for the side content of the game. But I guess I'll just have to play it on the PlayStation 4 for the time being, which is fine. Those of you who have been on my YouTube channel, Video Games for Fun, saw that I liked Persona 5 very much. I played only a tiny bit of the very first Persona game, Revelations Persona, I think it's called, and Persona 4 is on Steam, in case you didn't know. So Persona 4 is much more accessible, much better distributed, I want to say. So I'm looking forward to playing Persona 4. And Persona fan or not, the Shin Megami Tensei games are coming to Switch, and that's exciting. Even though people might be like, well, people seem to be disappointed with the Nintendo Direct Mini. So I'm not sure if that means some people weren't paying attention to because before the Direct was coming, it was said that, this is going to be a small showcase, or it's going to be more third party, all that stuff. If Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4, any of that sort of big stuff was talked about on the Direct, I actually would have been surprised. The opposite of expecting big games on the Direct, and then there's no news for these games? Like, why? To be fair, also, there has been a bit of discussion with Nintendo and the Directs and how they're showcasing their games, especially in regards to the pandemic. Games like Paper Mario the Origami King were announced pretty much out of nowhere. I don't think it was even said, oh, by the way, there's a trailer for a new game coming out in 24 hours or in an hour. Be sure to have a look. Paper Mario the Origami King just pretty much went onto my Twitter feed before I was about to go to bed. But is that how the Nintendo Directs are going to run these days? Well, or at least for showcases for games, maybe we'll suddenly get a tweet saying, expect more Breath of the Wild 2 news. And even then, when is Breath of the Wild 2 going to come out? When is Metroid Prime 4 going to come out? And all these other big releases. I think No More Heroes 3, Bayonetta 3. Who knows? Games are going to be delayed. Nintendo might also be struggling a bit, especially in a work-from-home environment with internet connections, even though we did get Paper Mario Origami King, and there's other releases, indie or otherwise, coming to Switch, but it does feel like Nintendo Switch this year is just going to be a bit of an empty year, because Breath of the Wild 2 may not come out until 2021 at the earliest. I'm hoping it does come out in 2021, actually, because the assets may be similar to the first game. But if Nintendo have to take their time with Breath of the Wild 2, I'll wait. But we're waiting for it. And I was fine with a Direct. Of course, would I wish for a longer Direct? A first-party games Direct, all that stuff? Of course. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm interested in the Shin Megami Tensei games, but I'm fine with a Direct. And this can start discussion on, the Nintendo Switch not getting as many games this year, the Directs, E3, the big conventions where Nintendo may not even show up. Let's talk about that in the comments and whatnot, that I'll obviously talk about at the end, because I do have, obviously, my social media and everything. So that's the Nintendo Direct. The Xbox Games Showcase. Now, again, I'm a bit late on the train to see this, but there was a variety of games for the Xbox Series X, I believe. Yes, you can tell I'm not as knowledgeable about the Xbox One, that sort of generation. I only have an Xbox 360, which was given to me by a friend. And I do have a number of Xbox 360 games, or original Xbox games, physical and digital and all that. But it goes without saying that there was some highlights for the Xbox Games Showcase. Let's go over them, shall we? Now, The most talked about game for it, I believe, for better or for worse, was Halo Infinite. I have played quite a bit of the Halo series, namely the first 3 Halo games, and I think a bit of Halo Reach. It's for prequel before the first Halo game. And I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Halo fan, but I do have fond memories of playing the Halo games, especially co-op with other people. And part of me also wants to play the games more in depth over the next few months or years, perhaps. To an extent, this does look like another Halo game, but I don't have any problems with that. But do I have problems with the outdated graphics like other people do? I guess maybe I do. To be fair, the Halo games, especially going back to the first game, were graphics powerhouses. When the first Halo came out, like, the graphics, like, they were like out of this world. And that was one aspect out of many that seemed to sell the Xbox. Like, I was almost tempted to get an Xbox, the original Xbox, just for Halo, but that's no longer the case for me. I have Halo now on the Xbox 360. But Halo was a graphics showcase. Like, it made the original Xbox look, powerful. So people are inclined to say that one of the most recent Halo games, one of the previous ones, looked better than Halo Infinite. Like, why doesn't it look great? It looks passable. The graphics of Halo Infinite look passable. But as long as the story, gameplay, and the general Halo feel is there, I personally don't have much to complain about. We'll come back to the graphics of Halo Infinite and other games at the end of this topic discussion. Now, of course, I am a Nintendo fan who wishes that Rare would have stayed on with Nintendo, but they're making a nice looking game called Everwild. So perhaps Rare can make an interesting game there. Everwild looked really nice. It really did. The other vaguely interesting game was Tell Me Why, which is an adventure game. I like adventure games. And I'm also only going on Wikipedia's notice, and I'm not sure how true this is. It's the first, I guess, major game or major release to feature a transgender character or a playable transgender character. I can actually talk about that in a future podcast. But is that true though? Weren't there playable transgender characters before, or are these characters that really were like main characters? I don't know. But there's an adventure game that could be really interesting. Now, I had almost forgotten about the Stalker series, which I think is like a first-person shooter game or a first-person shooter game with horror elements. I remember when the first game, Stalker Chernobyl, Ghosts of Chernobyl, I think it was called, and I've mispronounced Chernobyl, I think. I'm sorry. I remember, even though I didn't have an Xbox system or anything like that, the first time I heard about that game, I was mildly intrigued by it. And if there's a Stalker 2, well, go for it. I'm just vaguely interested in it because of my initial interest with the first game in the series. And quite a few people seem to be interested in it too. Like if any people thought much of the games for the Xbox Game Showcase were kind of underwhelming, there's Stalker 2. Now, Balan Wonderworld, I hope I pronounced that right. I wouldn't have heard about this if it wasn't for Tasting's Gaming Spot. You get a shout out there, buddy, with your reaction video, which I believe was at the pre-showing for the streaming or the overall showcase. It is made by Square Enix, but it's not an RPG, from what I can tell anyway. It's more of a 3D platformer that has a similar, I guess, controls, gameplay progression and whatnot to A Hat in Time, with aesthetics that could be borrowed from Nights into Dreams. And I've played Nights into Dreams, haven't played Hat in Time yet, but the platformer, or 3D platformer, is certainly not dead. Well, come on, we've looked at the last few years, we've seen a resurgence. And Square Enix doing a game like that, I'm not sure if it's lacking precedence, but if it looks and plays as good as it seems to, I hope Balan Wonderworld comes onto other platforms. I'll talk about that in a sec. Also, for you horror fans, there's a game called The Medium, which is a psychological horror game that was supposed to come out around the Wii U, PS3, whatever generation. I'm not sure why it's taken this long to come out, but it is. And it does look kind of scary. Also, speaking of something that's kind of scary, there's Hellblade 2. I have not played the first Hellblade game. I've heard good things about it, especially with its depiction of, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, psychosis? I believe Hellblade primarily features psychosis as one of its story elements or what have you, what it explores. And I mean, it looks like a really good game, and so does Hellblade 2. Awesome. Now, Ori and the Will of the Wisps has come out fairly recently on the PC or computer as well as the Xbox One. Now, it was also announced very briefly that a special version or edition is coming out that will allow Ori and the Will of the Wisps to run better. Now, speaking as someone who's only managed to play a bit of this game on the PC and has had trouble running it, I'm not particularly tech savvy, that does annoy me slightly. I guess sometimes it's better just to wait for games, really, rather than get them on release. I don't think I got Will of the Wisps on release, but I really wanted to play it because I enjoyed Ori and the Blind Forest so much. I played Ori and the Blind Forest on Switch and PC, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, from what I've heard or played, is good, though I wish Will of the Wisps would come out on Switch, or maybe just run better on the PC. Or maybe we could have waited more for this release, or just, I don't know, it just annoys me slightly. But any more Ori is fine, right? If you haven't played Ori of the Blind Forest, and I guess Will of the Wisps, Will of the Wisps, do so. It's beautiful. And it's kind of like a Metroidvania, if that's your thing. But above all, it's beautiful. And it plays beautifully too. It is hard though. It's possible. It's not Dark Souls hard, is it? Well, I haven't played Blind Forest for a while, but that was a good game. And Will of the Wisps was talked about briefly, although I didn't talk about it briefly. Also, one of the most exciting things in the showcase was Psychonauts 2. Oh my goodness, does it look great. Especially having played only a bit of the first Psychonauts, and that game also partially been responsible for the comeback of 3D platformers, as well as being a humorous, fun game made by, have I mispronounced his name here? Tim Schaffner? You would know him for being responsible for David Tentacle and Monkey Island games and that sort of thing. But Psychonauts 2 looks so exciting. I believe it's only, well, you can probably play it on the PC as well, because I played Psychonauts on the PC. And it's such a funny game. And Psychonauts 2 looks to be a fun game too. And I think Psychonauts 2 was announced some time ago, actually. Or at least it was said, oh, we're making a sequel to the game. Well, it's coming. It's coming, yes. Also, speaking of sequels, Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, I think that's what it's called. I have lost track of what has been happening with Phantasy Star Online 2. So last year at E3, I think they announced it. I forget which conference it was. Is this the same game? Is it a expansion, or is it a... I am honestly quite confused about Phantasy Star Online 2. That's where you people come in. Is it the same game I heard about last year? I don't know. All I know is that I only briefly played the first Phantasy Star Online on GameCube, a system that had little to no proper internet connection. Maybe I'd rather play Phantasy Star 4 on the Genesis / Mega Drive, and I'm having trouble with my S sounds. I've already apologized there. But Phantasy Star Online 2. Also, there's a new Fable game coming out. It just said Fable. So it wasn't like, was it Fable 4 or a remaster of the first Fable? Which I think the first Fable game has already been remastered in the anniversary thing. So But more Fable. Yes, please. Coming from a person who hasn't played the games. I've heard good things about Fable 1 and 2 at the least. But also the trailer for the new Fable game was interesting with the frog and all that sort of thing as well. Because from what I could pick up, the Fable games have a beautiful, fantastical presentation. Looks very immersive. A great world to explore. And I believe that's also an exclusive to the Xbox consoles, isn't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. So you have to play on an Xbox system of some sort to play a Fable game. So that's most of the highlights for me. I think there were a few other highlights I may have missed or have not been as interested in. Like, if it wasn't for Tasting's Gaming Spot, I wouldn't have known about that Square Enix game, Balan Wonderworld. And there were a few other games which I guess were only mildly interesting, like, racing games, action games. But it seemed to be a good showcase. Should I get an Xbox One-ish console now? I don't know. I still have to prepare for the PlayStation 5, and there's still rumours of a successor to the Nintendo Switch, or at least an enhanced version of it. But regardless of the power of the Xbox One console or consoles of Xbox One X, however it goes, as well as Halo Infinite, I did pick up a recurring pattern of comments on social media about the graphics, not just of Halo Infinite, but the games in general. I was led to believe that the Xbox systems, not just the Xbox One, but the first two Xbox systems, the original and the 360, were probably the most impressive looking graphics of each respective generation. Like the Xbox looks better than the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. But maybe graphics aren't everything, and it's all down to art direction. Like I said, games like Balan Wonderworld, Everwild, and games like that seem to have, beautiful art direction and hopefully good gameplay to back it up. So, overall, I thought the Xbox Games Showcase was interesting. And broadly speaking, could it make me get an Xbox One? I don't know. I've only got an Xbox 360, and I'm happy with it. So honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't want to get an Xbox One just to play, Ori and the Will of the Wisps more smoothly, right? I wouldn't want to get it just for one game. But there was an interesting showcase to talk about there. Let me know what you thought of the Xbox Games Showcase and the Xbox One generation of systems, if you like. And finally, gotta go fast because the Sonic film sequel is coming out. Apparently, and this may not be definite or it might be changed, and I'll say why, the release date is April 8th, 2022. They seem pretty positive about it. Wow. Well, let's come back to the release date because I want to talk broadly about the Sonic film sequel. Jim Carrey, who plays Robotnik or Eggman in the film, expressed interest in doing a sequel, and I guess he and the production team want to explore Robotnik or Eggman a bit more. The other interesting thing in regards to the Sonic film sequel, or should I say sequels, James Marsden, who, I forget the character's name, but he played the main live-action character, said he was open to multiple sequels. So what, there's going to be more sequels beyond the second one? Well, the first sequel, but the second Sonic film, is going to be more than that? Well, the first Sonic film did really well, and it's quite likely that this one will too. And I guess if it makes money, yes, more Sonic film sequels, I guess. And then again, even though the first Sonic film sequel was massively and financially successful, I guess the reviews for it, both from critics and fans, were slightly mixed. I mean, I haven't seen the Sonic film since its release in theatres, and when I reviewed it on YouTube on the day I saw it, it was a good film. It was enjoyable. Well, it wasn't necessarily a masterpiece by any means, and there were some things about it I really did not like. But some of these aspects might be changed in the sequel. Now, this film has been out for months, so I'm not sure if it's spoiler-free, but I'll still try to keep spoilers out of a discussion here. For those of you who saw the film, know that the last scene or the last shot was mostly put in there to see if they could do another sequel or see if they could do another film. And there was a plan for that character to have, or to be a main character in the first film, but they just wanted to look at Sonic and Robotnik/Eggman instead. So, not just this character, but hopefully we'll see more of the other worlds, you see. James Marsden being in this sequel obviously means that there's still going to be live action elements. But I'm hoping that we'll get to see more of the worlds in a similar graphical style to how Green Hill, right, was in the first scene of the film. So maybe we'll get to see Green Hill, Mushroom Hill, and Hilltop Zone. And I mean Hilltop Zone, not just a name drop, even if that was a good reference. Maybe we could see Angel Island. We don't even know the plot of this Sonic 2 film, of course. I'm hoping overall that we'll get to see more of the worlds. I don't know if people are still hoping that the first film, and indeed this one, could have or should have been just all, 3D, graphics, similar graphics to how Sonic ended up being. And that's the whole film, like no live action elements or no fairly typical or cliched, this weird character that's done in special effects, arrives into our world and things happen. I didn't necessarily have a problem with that, although I can imagine people might be like, oh, we've already seen that before, or it just wasn't well executed. If we want a Sonic film, have it like the first scene of the film, go to Green Hill and all those other places and have the CGI characters like Sonic and all that. Although the Sonic redesign was well received, definitely no hesitation there, not just by me, but by so many other people. Am I not talking properly? I'm talking too fast, like Sonic the Hedgehog. Although I'm not sure if I had to go fast to meet the April 8th, 2022 release date. They don't have to worry about redesigns, as far as I'm aware anyway. Sonic looked fine. The other character, you know who he is without my even saying who it is, don't you? Looked fine as well. Although I could be wrong, maybe people looked at that and gone, you got Sonic mostly right, but that one, you have to redesign him. So, it's not just the redesigns, of course, that may delay this. It wouldn't, but of course, it's the pandemic. That's why I'm a little bit like, why is this release date so specific? Not much has been said if they've even, tried to film it. They've probably got a script ready, or at least have nearly finished the script or the first draft. The special effects, especially if there's going to be more of these other worlds, maybe worlds we didn't see in the first film. So, yeah. And also Ben Schwartz, I think that's his name, who did the voiceover and motion capture for Sonic, also was kind of surprised of this as well because of the pandemic. But he'll also surely be back to do the work for Sonic the Hedgehog as well. That Blue Blur is in good hands as far as voice acting and motion capture and things go on. Hey. Also, the reason I haven't been able to rewatch the Sonic film lately is because it's not on, as far as I can tell, any of my streaming services. Though Pokemon Detective Pikachu is, and where's the sequel for that? It was just casually announced. It seems like video game films are doing okay at the moment. Detective Pikachu was received reasonably well by critics, and for me was a fun film to watch. I might actually watch Detective Pikachu again, and of course Sonic is getting a sequel. Though it still remains to be seen if the Sonic film, if anything, still changed the perception of video game films. But let me know what you thought of the Sonic film and what you think of this surely specific release date for the sequel, which will feature Sonic, Robotnik/Eggman, that character's name that James Marsden plays and I forget, and more gotta go fast, collect the rings, all that stuff, shenanigans of the Sonic universe. I wonder why that release date is so oddly specific. I don't know, but I do know one other thing. That's the end of this somewhat shorter Video Games for Fun Weekly Podcast. Again, I apologize for not doing last week's episode. I hope to write some really specific notes in regards to a video game music topic I want to talk about. I know I already talked about Super Darky and the video game music copyright, but there's another aspect of video game music I really want to talk about. That's just going to take a bit of time. Maybe it will be in the next one. Why don't you join in for that? Or join in for my YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. And also, what is the name of my YouTube channel for those of you who are listening audio only? Why, it's Video Games for Fun. ViddyO Games for Fun, all one word. And actually, I've started recording sessions for my Viddy Plays channel. That's my secondary Let's Play channel. Also, around the time of this recording for Video Games for Fun, I am working on the Final Fantasy VII project. And above all, the YouTube channel's 3-year anniversary. As of August 9th, 2020, I will have been doing Video Games for Fun on YouTube for 3 years. It almost boggles the mind, but I'm looking forward to doing it. Well, I've already started working on it and celebrating. Maybe retrospect. You've already celebrated it, whether you're listening to this audio only or not. Well, we're going to stop a podcast eventually. Thank you so much for listening. And at the moment, I hope that those of you who are in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, where I live, are doing okay with the increased restrictions, and any one of you in the world are doing okay, staying safe and healthy, and also just doing your best considering what's going on in the world. We're all trying our hardest here just to, I guess, be happy, working hard, anything. I hope you're all doing okay. So, have a good day or night or whatever it is. Enjoy your games, and I'll see you next time. Yay!